Okay.
Hey guys, and welcome to Tnashi's Movie Corner. Today we will be talking about Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the TV series that went from 2008 to 2015. And just say, if you've seen some of my other videos, I've now reviewed Star Wars Episode 1 and Episode 2. And I do those once a month leading up to The Force Awakens. But I felt like I had to review this series. This does fall in between 2 and 3. It is the Clone Wars, which gets referenced in A New Hope. So this goes through a lot of the events that took place during that time. And I really felt like I should probably talk about this because this is canon and it is part of the Star Wars universe. And it actually helps in some ways with many different aspects of the lore. So felt like it should be brought up. But for this show, George Lucas was the creator behind it, and you have Dave Filoni as the director and producer for this, as well as Star Wars Rebels. And this show went on for 6 seasons, or really five seasons, and then I think the last one was Lost Episodes, is what they were called, or Lost Missions rather. And I don't know that it was considered a complete season, but that came out on Netflix. So anyway, when it came to this it was really weird because this was presented on Cartoon Network, and apparently they didn't air the episodes in chronological order. So I'm surprised this has any fans at all, because it's really hard to especially for kids, being on Cartoon Network, trying to keep track of this, and it's showing you episodes completely just out of context. It just doesn't work. But anyway, as far as the actual show goes, it follows Anakin and Obi-Wan, and Anakin gets an apprentice named Ahsoka. And it basically follows them, as well as Mace and Yoda and the others, again through the events of the Clone Wars that go at the very end of Episode 2 and go into Episode 3. And the first Clone Wars, this started off with a movie, and the movie was basically 4 episodes that they just piled together, and it felt really awkward, and I wasn't on board with it. But then I got to watching Season 1. And Season 1 it worked a little better for me. It's still a little awkward. There were still moments that don't work for it. But as the season started progressing, it just started getting better and better and better. And it really went into the lore, the mythology of Star Wars. You had the Mandalorians show up, which was really cool. You had all these bounty hunters showed up, including one by Cad Bane. And it also went with a little more of Boba Fett's story, like his progression, and how he, in the direction of him going to being the bounty hunter that we all know from Empire. So you had stuff like that, which really worked. The CG, well, at first it threw me off a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, it looked a little odd, but the battle sequences were amazing. The lightsaber fights are actually really good. I really enjoy most of them, so that worked. And after a few episodes, you really get used to the CG for how it is, and at that point, it doesn't take the focus away from the story, which is good. So anyway, going through these episodes, though, you really get a sense of the characters. You really get a sense of Anakin and Obi-Wan, and you got a little bit of Obi-Wan in the prequels, because Ian McGregor did a great job as Obi-Wan. Anakin didn't come off as well, but this one you really get to see Anakin, and you really get to see his character grow as a Jedi Knight and as a teacher, because that's what he is for this and everything. And as a commander on the battlefield, you really get all the aspects of it, and you see him get influenced by the dark side as well. You see that slowly build into him, so it really makes sense. And you seeing the relationship between him and Ahsoka and him and Obi-Wan, you really start to feel like how Obi-Wan was describing Anakin in Episode 4. So I think this series did a really good job of that. It really worked out, and you did have the character dynamics, like they did work better. So I think all that really, and you have some stuff too that gets resolved in this series that actually ties in to either the prequels or in some cases into the original trilogy, like the Sifo-Dyas story arc that was in Episode 2. They reference it talking about the clone army and everything. You actually see how everything played out and how it got up to that point in the Clone Wars. You learn all about that, and so that was something I did miss out on for Episode 2, and I feel like they did a good job of incorporating that in this show. Also, you have characters that show up again. Darth Maul, he was a fan favorite from Episode 1, and he returns in this series. And then he has a brother named Savage Opress, which shows up, which, that's all really cool. You have Ventress, who is the apprentice, starts off as the apprentice of Count Dooku. And you get kind of a character arc with her, which I was really surprised with how they went into that. So, and it goes into Order 66 and what's all behind it. And with that, it actually gets into the clones themselves, and the clones actually showcase personality. So when they actually die in this show, you feel it. Where that's one of the things that was lacking about the prequels, is when they died, they were just, they were just cannon fodder. Like, you didn't really care. This one, you actually care a bit, and it goes through different Jedi. Different Jedi show up that you've seen in the prequels, some of them, and some of them that you haven't. But it goes through different arcs with them, and you get to see kind of their battle styles and their kind of philosophies on things, and you really get to know them. So again, when you see some of them die in Episode 3, you feel that. And the fact that it goes through kind of tempting Anakin with the dark side, by the end of Clone Wars, you really like Anakin. So again, not really bashing, just pointing out here the differences between the prequels and this. In Episode 3, you did like Anakin at the beginning. He did seem like how we wanted him to be. But Clone Wars really establishes him as a good character, and you're rooting for him. But he showcases this dark side of him at different points. There's stuff that comes up that happens where you see that temptation there, and it does play out to be more of a tragedy in Episode 3 based on seeing him here. Whereas Episode 2, we just saw him as a bit of a whiner, and it doesn't really work. You didn't get the connection at all with that character, so I really enjoy that. Also, you have Liam Neeson, who shows up and reprises his role as Qui-Gon Jinn, and he has he shows up in several episodes, one of which discusses it's where he has a discussion with Yoda and sends Yoda basically on a quest where Yoda learns how to become one with the Force, like what they did in Empire, or in Return of the Jedi, and what Obi-Wan did at the end of New Hope, or near the end of New Hope, when he gets killed. So it talks, and of course that's a reference to Yoda talking to Obi-Wan at the end of Episode 3, saying that he's had conversations with Qui-Gon. So that was all really cool. And again, like this one, you also see quite a bit more of Dooku, and I appreciate that, because you really don't get that much of Dooku in the prequel with the Episode 2 and Episode 3. I mean, he's at the very beginning of Episode 3, and he's at the tail end of Episode 2, and that's all that you really get. And the Clone Wars, he is more of a constant threat. You also get more of Grievous, which is a good thing because it does lend more to the Grievous character. And I felt like he was poorly used in episode 3. He's one of the things I really dislike about episode 3. So it's nice to see that. Also, you have Mark Hamill, who actually does the voice of Darth Bane. And if you don't know who Darth Bane is, he is basically a Sith Lord that created the rule of 2, and he was in the expanded universe, and it actually makes some of that canon. And it's really cool to hear him, just to have him back in the show, part of Star Wars at all, and doing the voice of a character that I know many fans love, many fans of the novels and everything. So I think Dave Filoni, as the director and producer, did a really good job. And to give him credit, I think George Lucas did a good job on the story. I really like this series. It's a really solid series. It does have Jar Jar. Just warning you now, if you didn't like Jar Jar, he is in here, and it does bring it down a little bit. And there's some story arcs that are better than others. I think most of them are pretty solid, and you can take away a lot from. But there are some that are just there, kind of the comedic episodes, or almost like the filler episodes, and those are episodes more targeted towards the kids, I guess. But as a kids show, or as a show that was on Cartoon Network, this has a lot in it that I think adults can take away from, as well as kids. And it's really enjoyable, and it really has some of the essence of what the original trilogy was, what made people like it so much. So if you hated the prequels, this might, I want to say it'll change your opinion. It might give you a little more appreciation for, say, episode 3 in particular, as it did for me. Or at the very least, you might find that you enjoy this. But it really goes between back and forth. Some people love it, some people hate it. For me, rating it, I would have to give it an 8 out of 10. I think it's really good. Has some points that are a little off, a little awkward in their presentation, and there's just moments that just don't match up with the rest of the show. But I think overall the show's really good, and you really get a solid look into this world through the series. And I know they continued on in some novels, so I'll be looking forward to reading some of those. I wish they had continued been able to finish, because they weren't, due to the deal with Lucas signing it over to Disney. But all the same, that's where I stand. 8 out of 10. I think it's really good, and I hope if you haven't checked it out, please check it out. And if you have, let me know what you think. I know some people might disagree with me. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts about it. And I know I did some spoilers, but there's so much here. I feel like you can really take a lot away from the show. Anyway, guys, that'll wrap it up for me, and until next time, peace.